Just seconds ago, the Federal Reserve decided to cut interest rates for a third straight time. The board voting for a quarter-point rate cut. That is what experts were predicting, and it is the final interest rate decision of 2025. Let's zoom out and look at the Fed's decisions over this year. We've seen cuts since September after the interest rate did not change for most of the year. It's also worth noting the board members were flying blind a bit before casting today's vote. That's because the government reports that the Fed usually relies on have been delayed or canceled as the result of the shutdown of the government. NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans is at the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C. today. At the center of the action, Christine, for people watching at home, what does this third straight cut mean for our money?
Yeah, all the reporters here eagerly reporting that this is the third cut in a row, as expected, that quarter point. But this is essentially to juice the American economy a little bit, as it is, as you said, flying blind without all of the data that we're normally used to. So the Fed trying to give a little bit of support into the economy here as they wait for some more important information on jobs and inflation in the weeks ahead. The Fed clearly is stepping in here trying to support the job market. We've seen a few signs of weakness in the job market, but again, we haven't had all of the big data points that we want to see. At the same time, though, also concerned about inflation. Inflation is still higher than the Fed would like it to be.
And Christine, this vote was a bit unusual because board members didn't have, as we said, all that government data on inflation and employment. But have we gotten a bit of that more recently? What do we know about the state of the economy right now?
Look, we know, for example, if you look at some of these private sector reports out there, that the job market may be showing some signs of weakening, specifically small business job cuts. We saw ADP, a private sector payroll agency, say that 32,000 jobs were lost in the month of November. So that's a sign of weakness that clearly a lot of people are watching out here. But at the same time, inflation in September up 2.8%. The September PCE, that's something that the Fed really watches. They would like to see it to be 2%. So the balance here for the Fed is really tricky, you guys. It has two jobs: to keep, inflation under control and to keep the job market strong and solid. And right now, the thing that helps the job market is something that could hurt the inflation story. So that's the indecision and the careful nature you've seen from the Fed so far.
Yeah, and Christine, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, I know, is expected to speak at a news conference less than 30 minutes from now. You're there.
Yep.
What do you want to ask him?
Yeah, good idea.
We're going to hear what the Fed thinks about inflation and jobs next year. They're going to give some new economic forecasts. That's going to be important. Want to know specifically also about maybe some of the dissents on the Fed. What am I talking about? The Fed is not just one person who makes this decision. It's a board. And there were three people who did not agree with this current decision to cut by a quarter of a point. So we want to hear more about what's happening inside the Fed, why they're having more trouble building a consensus there. Is that political? Is that something happening in the economy? We'll hear from the Fed chief in just about 25 minutes.
All right. Sounds good. Christine Romans, thanks so much.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.